Hi everyone, I'm Celeste. Welcome to my BookTube channel. Today I'm really excited to be here with you because it's summer and therefore that time once again when a woman's thoughts turn to Jane Austen July. Stay tuned. Just by way of explanation, I'm not going to be looking directly at the camera lens today. I'm going to be using some notes which are on my computer screen, which is actually right here. So if I'm facing this way a little bit, you'll know why. I really enjoyed the Jane Austen and Regency periods. It's a period of time or an era which really excites me. As you know, I'm a history buff. I'm a fan of women's literature, and so it just ticks all the boxes and rings all the bells for me. Now, Jane Austen July is hosted each year by three booktubers, namely Katie from Books and Things, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and Claudia from Spinster's Library. And they've prepared a series of challenges for Jane Austen July, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, the challenges, I think there's maybe 7 in all, we'll see. The first one is to read one of Jane Austen's 6 main novels. So, of course, that includes Sense and Sensibility, Emma, Mansfield Park, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, and Northanger Abbey. This year, actually just this past week, namely yesterday afternoon, I finished Pride and Prejudice. And I have these lovely vintage copies. So I love the cover art and how when you open it up inside it's got the French flap and there's a contrasting pattern on the inside. So I did reread Pride and Prejudice. It's a perennial favorite. I enjoyed it just as much as I always do. And then of course last night I had to watch the Jennifer L. and Colin Firth version of the miniseries which had been presented on public television. The official read-along for this year's Jane Austen July is Northanger Abbey, and so I have this lovely copy of that, which is introduced by none other than the estimable P.D. James, and I have started that. There's a reading schedule which I'll share down below, which I got from Katie Lumsden at Books and Things. So I've read the first 3 chapters of this so far. I only read it once long ago, many years ago, and at the time I remember enjoying it, but I quite honestly don't remember an awful lot about it, so I'm looking forward to a more in-depth reread. This is the story of Catherine Morland. She's in her late teens, I believe, and she comes to Bath to stay. She has very overactive imagination and a sense of romance about her, and she's not necessarily beautiful, but she does come to Bath and she meets Mr. Tilney. She's invited to stay at Northanger Abbey, and it's sort of a tongue-in-cheek, humorous Gothic novel. So I'm really in the mood for that this July. In fact, as you'll see, it kind of is informing many of my choices that I'll be sharing with you today. So I'm enjoying this one as well. The second challenge is to read something by Jane Austen that is not one of her 6 main novels. Now for this challenge, the hosts are officially reading Jane Austen's Juvenilia. However, this time around, I think I'm going to instead go with the very slim and doable volume Lady Susan. Now I've seen the movie Love and Friendship, but I have never actually read Lady Susan, and I feel like it would be a great follow-up to having read Sanditon last summer. So I have this really nice little hardcover volume from Penguin, and I'm going to enjoy that greatly, I'm sure. Additionally, challenge number 3 is to read a nonfiction work about Jane Austen or her times. So last year I read a number of books about Jane Austen. I read Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley. I really enjoyed that, and in fact some parts of it I actually found profound. I love social history, and I loved learning about Jane Austen through the provenance of everyday objects that could have been found in her home, in her clothing, etc. Speaking of clothing, I had also read Dress in the Age of Jane Austen by Hilary Davidson. This is all about Regency fashion. This is just a lavishly illustrated, wonderful, wonderful book. And if you are a Janeite, you must own this. It's full of illustrations, talks about every aspect of dress in the Regency period. I believe Hilary Davidson actually has another book coming out that can be pre-ordered, and I think it comes out in September. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And it's another about Jane Austen and fashion. So I'm really looking forward to that. However, I also thought I might dip into this book, Dorothy Wordsworth's Lakeland Journals. This is the illustrated edition. Now, Dorothy Wordsworth lived 1771 to 1855, so it was during a number of the years that constitute the Regency / Jane Austen era. Dorothy Wordsworth was the sister of the poet William Wordsworth. She and her siblings lived together in Dorset. William ended up marrying her best friend, whose name was Mary Hutchinson, and that was in 1802, and therefore Dorothy Wordsworth made her home with William Wordsworth and his wife, her best friend, so that's great. She was an avid naturalist. She has gorgeous and evocative daily journal entries about taking nature walks with her brother, and images often actually ended up appearing in her brother's poem, so he was greatly indebted to her for that. Her writing explores the natural world, and although she didn't publish her work during her lifetime, it really does give you kind of a neat sense of what life was like at that time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to dipping into this more and learning more about everyday life in the country during this time. And I love letters and journals anyway, as I'm sure you know by now. Another book that I'm considering was a book from Pen and Sword Press, which I had gotten for my birthday last April, and that is What Regency Women Did for Us by Rachel Knowles. What a lovely, lovely cover that is. And it sort of carries on to the back down at the bottom here. And so, yeah, Rachel Knowles has a Regency history blog, and this is inspirational stories of what women achieved against the odds. So it's just like little mini biographies of a lot of Regency female figures. Eleanor Code, the King's Stonemaker, the accidental astronomer, Carolyn Herschel, the upright actress, Sarah Siddons, entrepreneur extraordinaire, Marie Tussaud, and I read a book about Madame Tussaud as well, which I shared a few vlogs ago. Check that one out if you haven't already. A mountaineer named Mary Parmenter, the mother of historical fiction, Maria Edgeworth, and many others. So if you're looking for sort of little mini bios of women that lived during the Regency era, this would be a great one to try out. So I'm going to be dipping into this more as well. Now the next prompt is to read a retelling of a Jane Austen book or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. I may try Longborn, which is a novel by Jo Baker, and I believe this is a work of, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Medrash, which is when you retell a well-known story from another character's point of view. So I love those as a general rule, and I think this would be pretty interesting because really you don't get much from the servant's perspective, you know, viewing the whole life of the Bennet sisters, for example, in doing laundry and serving the meals and being insulted by Lydia, etc., etc. So I think this is probably interesting from that perspective. I did try to read the first chapter and I wasn't absolutely taken or captivated by it. So I don't know. I mean, the month is a short period of time to read so many works, so I don't know if I want to actually complete this or not. I'll give it a try, but some others that I had on the back burner, I was thinking of Godmersham Park, and then there's another one that I have here, which is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies by Seth Graham Smith, also crediting Jane Austen, because I am on such a Gothic kick. I just love the idea of Regency combined with Gothic and horror elements, and that goes along perfectly with Northanger Abbey. So I may add that to the pile. It's not actually a retelling, I don't think, or is it? Have you read this? Is it good? Let me know. The fifth challenge is to read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen, published between 1775 and 1817. Now, there are several choices here. We'll see how I end up doing with this. I know that Jack of Spread Bookjoy and Ange's Book Chatter have chosen Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have my copy here. This, of course, is a gorgeous Chiltern edition. They publish so many lovely books. Look at the black end papers there, and the satin ribbon to mark your spot. So I had also immediately this year decided to read Frankenstein before I knew that there was going to be a Frankenstein Read-along. So I was super excited about that. This is Mary Shelley's seminal novel of the scientist whose creation becomes a monster. And I believe this is the original 1818 text, which I believe is meant to be more politically charged, a bit more feminist, a bit more hard-hitting. I also have it to listen to on the Audrey app, so and also on Audible. So between the three of those, I'll get to Frankenstein this July for sure. I know that for this read-along, they're doing all sorts of fun things. They're having a book discussion, I think on Voxer as well. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to participate in those activities, but I will try. I may also try to read Mary Shelley, The Strange True Tale of Frankenstein's Creator by Catherine Reef. I started to read that last year, and I was looking for a biography of Mary Shelley, and I brought, I think, 5 of them home from the library to get a sense of them and to choose one. And out of all of them, I remember that The Strange True Tale of Frankenstein's Creator was a really fun book and just totally got me in the mood. Catherine Reef, the author, writes it in a really Gothic style. So, it opens with Mary Shelley, the fact that someone's heart was kept in a drawer, a desk drawer, and they're looking at that. And she's visiting her deceased mother in the graveyard. It's written in a very evocative Shelley-esque style, so it really goes along with the subject material. Or I may try Castle Rackrent by Maria Edgeworth. I just picked up this edition from eBay for I think $3. Really nice copy from Oxford World Classics. This was Maria Edgeworth, I think also called Mariah if you're British. Is that the way you pronounce it? This was her first novel, and it is supposedly a tale of social observation, character sketches, and it really established Maria Edgeworth, or Mariah, as a novelist. She was praised by Sir Walter Scott, and eventually her other novel, Belinda, was particularly admired by Jane Austen. So I may give this one a try. We'll see. Also from this time period, if you're being generous and going maybe 50 years this way and 50 years that way, are the Romantic poets. And so I had picked this up years ago and never really examined it thoroughly. This is a little collection from Dover Thrift Editions, and it is called 5 Great English Romantic Poets, and they're little paperback volumes, as you can see here. So we have George Gordon, Lord Byron's selected poems by Percy Bysshe Shelley, so that's super appropriate with reading Frankenstein. The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and Other Poems by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Favorite Poems by William Wordsworth, and again there's going to be that connection with Dorothy Wordsworth. And finally, Lyric Poems by John Keats. So I just think that's a kind of a neat segue from reading novels of that period to reading some of the Romantic poets of the time. Challenge number 6 is to watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. Now, last night, as mentioned, I did just watch the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. I've never actually seen the 2005 version with Keira Knightley, so I may additionally watch that. First and foremost, however, I'll be watching the 2007 version of Northanger Abbey to go along with my reading of Austen's novel. And I may also do a rewatch just for the heck of it, even though it's not a direct screen adaptation at all, but I may rewatch Death Comes to Pemberley, and that is based on this novel by P.D. James. I picked this up at a thrift store maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and this cost me about $1.99. I think it's a beautiful hardcover edition. There's P.D. James on the back. I think it's appropriate since P.D. James did the introduction to Northanger Abbey. So she definitely has an interest in all things Jane Austen, and this is her take on turning Pemberley into the setting for a mystery. I love P.D. James. I'll be reading some other P.D. James this summer, and this is the only one that I will have ever read by her that deviates from her usual detectives. So this is, with Lizzie Bennet. So yeah, I've heard from people who love P.D. James that they don't think this one is as good as her other books, but I want to go into it with an open mind, so we'll see. So those are some of the possibilities of what I'll be reading for Jane Austen July. I know it's rather ambitious. I probably won't get to everything. I'll be happy if I get through half of it, actually. But I am enjoying Northanger Abbey, and as mentioned, love Jane Austen, and this is a super time of year to be reading her work. You can go out, and I've got the farm field right here, and the sheep, and the stone fence and all of that. So it's very pastoral and lovely and really goes along with the reading. So I love sitting outside in my backyard and appreciating all of that while reading Jane Austen. I hope you're having a wonderful July so far. Have a happy 4th. I'll be back again real soon. I've got some surprises in the works for you, some other Jane Austen themed vlogs to do for you, namely some bookish things and some crafts. So stay tuned for those, and until next time, we'll see you again. Happy 4th. Bye-bye.